In 2025, does frugal living really hold the key to financial success?
We're seeing the same question come up in our comment sections, and that is, are you planning and preparing for a recession?
Yes. Always. That's the answer to the question. But part of it is because we've been married for 37 years. In our lifetime, we've seen no less than 6 recessions. So I think it behooves us all the time, whether there is a recession or is not a recession, to be planning as though there could be or will be a recession. But I think the real question that the viewers are asking is, what are we personally doing to prepare in case there is a recession? And that's the question we're going to answer in this video.
If you don't know us, I'm Larry.
I'm Hope.
And we're from Under the Meeting, where practical frugality meets real life.
In 2025, a frugal mindset is probably more important than it has ever been before, but let's be honest. Will skipping lattes on the way to work really make that much of a difference? We'll talk about it in the video and explain why maybe the latte factor means more than you think the latte factor means.
Here's the truth. Small savings really do add up to big earnings. Every little bit that you can save makes a big difference in the long run in your budget.
But believe it or not, to us, money is not the most important factor when it comes to frugality. So what is the most important thing about frugality? The most important thing is the fact that frugality over time is building discipline, and it's also building consistency. And those two factors together, that mindset, that's what's going to break you out of the I'm stuck mindset and help you to make forward progress.
Frankly, when we hear that a recession might be coming or that many multiple prices can be going up for various reasons, we don't get too panicked or excited about it because we've been in a practice all along for planning the way that we save and the way that we spend. In a time of recession, we do what we do, only we go a little deeper in the areas that will be most affected by that recession. That's really all we do. We don't make a major change in how we apply the principles that we exercise all the time with frugality and budgeting.
So what are those areas and what specifically are we doing right now? We're going to spill the beans.
We'd like to throw out a challenge to you. Pick one area that we're talking about in this video and give us your comments and your perspective on it. We would love to hear from you.
Like this video for us, will you, while you're doing that, and make sure you're subscribed to Under the Median. First thing that we are doing, and we'll explain to you exactly why we're doing this, we have pulled out something we called our What If worksheet. We were watching the new news while eating lunch today, and they said gas prices are expected to soar over the summer. We immediately looked at each other because diesel fuel as well as gasoline, which is used in automobiles, those are both going up. The first thing you want to think about when you hear something like that is not only how it's going to affect your personal driving and your personal gas budget, but what other areas of your budget is that going to affect? Because when you see diesel prices going up, it affects a lot more than just what you pay personally at the gas pump.
Right. It affects anything that has to be shipped via trucks. That will be anything at the grocery store. Common items that you buy all the time are probably going to be affected some by this increase.
So what is the What If worksheet? We're going to explain to you exactly what this is. This worksheet, you'll notice when we show it on the screen, we filled it out in 2022 because exactly 3 years ago, in June of 2022, they were saying the exact same thing, that gas prices were getting ready to soar over the summer. So this is the worksheet that we filled out in 2022. And right now, this next week, we're getting ready to fill out our new worksheet in 2025. But much of what we talked about in 2022 is going to be exactly the same.
Now, we have 3 different listings for where gas prices could go. Now, gas isn't anywhere near these prices right now. In fact, this morning I just saw on a gas pump that it was $3.15.9 here in this area in central Illinois.
The whole idea is to forecast. what happens if the cost of this commodity goes up to different levels? How are you going to react? It gives you a game plan of exactly what you're going to do. Then you'll notice once again, toward the bottom of the worksheet, I have a space where we fill out what other areas of our budget is this going to impact. What this does is this gives us a game plan. So that if gas starts to go up, we don't panic because we've already planned for, all right, we've got a game plan for that. Let's implement the game plan.
Right. The second major item that we're going to look into is our bare bones budget. Now, what do we mean by that? A bare bones budget is all of the items that you absolutely cannot change or reduce in your budget. These are things you have to have in order to live. You have to have a certain amount of food. You have to have a certain amount of heating and cooling, water, gas, electricity. There are just a certain amount of things that we need in order to survive. So we've reduced it down to what are the lowest levels of all of these items that we can get by on, and we call that our bare bones budget.
Of course, that includes everything with your housing, which will include your mortgage or your rent payment as well.
True.
So housing, food, transportation, we call those the big three.
Yeah.
That basically is your bare bones budget. Those are your essentials. Now, underneath of your essentials, you have the kind of essential, but I can put it on hold for a while if I need to. And then you have the non-essentials, which is your discretionary income. The discretionary income, we are looking really hard at right now. Where are we spending money that we don't necessarily need to be spending it?
Right.
I have to tell you, Netflix went
We took
away.
it off. We went bye-bye.
We did it. Y'all know we've had Netflix for quite a while. And I was like, this is just one of those things that it took us 10 minutes to find anything we wanted to watch by this point anyway. And I said,
It was getting
Larry,
harder and harder to find shows that we liked.
This is silly. We're spending this money every month and we don't need to be spending it. So Netflix is gone right now. And that discretionary sort of spending is it shows up all over your budget where you don't realize that it's showing up.
Yeah.
Going out to eat. That's another example of discretionary spending. Where are you spending money that money doesn't necessarily have to be spent? So let's go back just real briefly. I think we mentioned maybe a little bit earlier that the latte factor. And I told you I explained the latte factor and that it has more impact on your budget than you actually think that it does. Here's the latte factor. 1 in 5 workers stops 5 days a week on the way to work to get a coffee. Let's just say that at your local coffee shop, a coffee is going to cost you $3. And I know that that's inexpensive, and that's probably at the very low end of what a cup of coffee is.
I was thinking more like 6 or 7.
It probably, if you get the latte version, it really is going to cost you a lot more than that. But let's just say basic black coffee is the love of your life. You're just getting a basic black coffee on the way to work. You can get it for $3. You can get it for less at McDonald's. I will say that, especially if you're a senior citizen. I think they still have the senior citizen coffee for $1 at McDonald's.
I don't know because I don't buy it from McDonald's.
So we haven't got it in a long time from
No.
McDonald's. Somebody tell us in the comment section, can you still get your senior citizen coffee from McDonald's? But you're getting the $3 coffee on the way to work. You're doing it 5 days a week. You're spending over $700 a year to get coffee on the way to work. Now, if you just make a simple swap, remember we talked about frugal swaps being so important? You're going to make that swap. You're going to make that coffee at home before you leave for work. You're going to maybe put it in thermos, take it with you to work. You're going to save over $600 a year. That's the kind of information that you need. And that brings us to a next point, which is do the math.
Yes.
Take what you're doing, look at it on a weekly basis, multiply it by 4. That's what you're spending
That's
a month
exactly
on that
right.
habit. Multiply it by 12, and that's what you're spending a year on that habit. Is it worth it to you to continue doing that habit when you're spending that per year on that one habit?
Let me tell you another area that we cut coffee in just recently. My coffee maker, it's a 12-cup Mr. Coffee basic coffee maker. It finally quit. And we're now down to a 4-cupper, which really isn't 4 cups. It's about 2 natural-sized cups.
It's still 12. It's 2 Larry-sized cups, okay? Let's just be honest. It's 2 Larry-sized cups.
Well, I like my coffee. We're down to making 2 pots of that a day. So now we're actually reducing our coffee, but as we go into the summer months, that's fine. We're going to drink more water. So that's just another area that we're going to cut a little bit more into that part of our budget. So what are our biggest concerns right now? We've narrowed it down to 4 major categories that we're going to really look very closely at. The first one is food. Food, of course, would be cooking from scratch. That's how Hope saves a lot of money. We don't buy a lot of prepared foods at the store. We buy the basic ingredients, try to get those in bulk if we can, and then Hope does a lot of scratch cooking.
We're looking for basic items, basic ingredients that we can get on sale for a really great price, and then planning our entire week's worth of menus around 1 or 2 of those basic ingredients. There's so many ways that we are cutting back on our food budget. Right now, that's important to us because we are looking at this inching up in expenses in every other area of our budget. We talked about increasing our food budget, and we both agreed, no, we can continue with where it's at. Where is it at, you might ask? We say that we feed 3 people, even though 4 people live in the house. Because our 2 older boys, they're not home a lot. They have jobs. They both have girlfriends. They eat over there a lot. So it's really like feeding 3 people instead of 4 people.
It is, yeah.
$200 a month. And remember, we do eat whole food, plant-based diet. So that does honestly help us to keep the grocery budget at that level. But no matter where your grocery budget is at, I think at some point, where we're at in the economy right now, you have to decide this far and no farther.
Right.
And you got to kind of set the bar and say, you know what? I feel like I am willing to figure out where the wiggle room is and where those areas are where I can maximize my savings. And I'm not willing to raise it right now. We got to that. The second area we're really concerned about is our utility bill.
Yeah.
Our utility company sent out such a nice memo. Wasn't it a nice memo?
Oh,
it was
really
a nice memo.
Nice memo.
And they said, gosh, we're really sorry. We know that, expenses are stretched right now and it's hard for families to do this, but we are going to raise your supply rate for the summer for electricity by 50%. Although this is going to be hard, we feel bad, and we're sorry that we have to do that. The fact they said they were sorry, that made me feel so much better. Mm-hmm. The utility rates right now, we have decided we are willing to buckle down. We're willing to do what we have to in order to make sure, make sure that we don't spend any more than we absolutely have to on electricity, just like that. There's a lot of shutting off lights going on around our house.
Yes.
We actually did a whole video on how we are dealing with these summer energy rate hikes and what we're doing to keep them in alignment with our budget. I'll make sure, guys, we link the video up above. I'll also put a link to it in the description of this video.
Transportation is another major area that we spend money on. We're going to be real careful to plan every trip that we're going to take out with a car. We may try to go to 2 or 3 different places that are close together and combine errands for sure. So if we know we're going, let's say for a dentist appointment, is there somewhere we can go near there and do some shopping that we need to do? Or is there something else we can do in that area? If we need to mail a letter or something to the post office, I'll just take it up on my bike and I'll drop it in the mailbox when I'm on a ride. And that saves a trip out with the car. Anything you can do to cut down on your driving will benefit you in this area.
Okay, the fourth area we're kind of concerned about and we're honing in on isn't really a budget category. It's sort of it's an all-around inclusive thing, and that is our shopping habits. We're really looking hard about why we spend money. I think people spend money for a variety of different reasons, right? We spend money because we're tired or because we're sad or because we're happy, or there's so many different reasons why we spend money. Yeah. And we're included in that.
Sure.
And so for us, we are meeting once a week. That's the other thing that we're doing. And this isn't like one of the 4 areas we're concerned about, but this is what we're doing in reaction to those 4 areas.
Yeah.
We're meeting once a week, and we're really looking at how we spent money that week and whether we spent it in accordance with our goals and with our values. Mm-hmm. And if we didn't, we're figuring out how we can change our own behavior so that we are in alignment and we're working together toward these goals. Because those big 3 areas, transportation, food, and electricity, those are 3 really, really big areas. Those are the 4 areas that we're really honing in on. We'd love to hear from you in the comments section. What are you most concerned about right now with the economy being the way it is? And if you're looking for more of like a step-by-step approach to exactly how we're handling some of these areas of our budget, we talk about those areas that we're honing in right now in our free guide to reducing expenses. Plus, there are 7 other areas that we cover in that free guide. I give you step-by-step instructions as well as checklists. It's free, guys, and there will be a link to it in the description of the video.
As things change in our economy, we're trying to change and redefine our idea of what success is. So we have to kind of move that along with these other things that are also in motion.
For us, I think success has become more about controlling what we can control and acknowledging what is beyond our control. We can't control what our utility company does with the rate that they charge us for supplying electricity.
No, we can't.
What we can control is everything else about how we use electricity. But we can't sit at home and go, oh my Lord, they raised the rates 50%, we're sunk. You can't get into that mindset. You have to immediately swing into, great, that's what they did. What am I going to do? What is my response to what's going on around me?
We also have another side of our definition for success. So besides what do we have control over, the other side is, where are we gaining ground? So we want to track where we're actually improving and what are the results of that. That way we can say, well, this isn't so bad. We're actually making some positive steps here, even though the economy is doing bad things.
And that's such a great point, Larry, because I think figuring out where we are successful and really kind of doubling down on that's going to be so super important. But how do you know where you're successful? You have to be tracking what you're doing.
Yes.
We use our 3-part pie method for doing this. Plan. We plan exact steps that we're willing to take in order to move the needle on these specific areas of our budget. Then we implement it 30 days. 30 days is what we do to consistently do those habits. And then we evaluate. So PIE, plan, implement, and then evaluate. We sit down together and I do as much as I can to put a spreadsheet together, as you might imagine. I'm the numbers queen. And I show him, here's what we did, here's the impact it had, here's what we thought it was going to do, here's what it did or didn't do. And we say, what are we going to keep? What are we going to repeat? What are we going to get rid of? What are we going to try? And we repeat that same process over and over and over again. That's exactly what frugality looks like in 2025. But if you do those steps over and over and over again, you'll see success.
And if you're consistent with using these strategies, this isn't going to be a major impact on you. You're just going to tweak a little bit, change a little bit, and ride right through it.
That's another point. You said change a little bit. That would be our other advice to you, because people hear the word recession and they freak out and they try to change everything at once.
Too much.
Too much.
Too much.
Too soon.
That's
too
right.
fast.
Yes.
Be very strategic about what you're doing. That would be the absolute advice that we would give, would be do what you're going to do, but be very strategic about it. Because when you're strategic, it allows you to really form an opinion which is based on fact and not on what may or may not happen. And when you have planned something, you've implemented it, it gives you the ability to look at the raw numbers and say, this made a difference or this didn't make a difference.
Frankly, things that you've been implementing over a long period of time eventually just become a habit and you automatically do them. So this is what Hope and I would suggest to everybody. It's almost like we're living like there might be a recession at any time. So if there is one, okay, well, we know what to do. We've been doing it.
But really, frugal living at its core, I think it's about more than how you spend money.
Oh, yes, it is.
Sometimes it's more about how you don't spend money. And there are 20 things that we do not spend money on. And some of them we've spent money on in the past and decided, nope, we're not doing it anymore. Some of them we have never, ever spent money on. And frankly, none of these 20 things do we miss ever spending the money on. Now, if you would like our list of 20 don't spend items, there's a video on it and it's right over there.